Thank you, Jenna. And up next, we will welcome Devin Pazanza, who is our executive director. And she is going to overview the Virginia Academy of PAs and give everyone a highlight about our organization.
Hi, everyone. Blake, if you want to go to that next slide, thank you. What is pulled up on the screen here is a graphic that shows VAPA's mission statement and our goals. And we actually have, as a board, have met and kind of redefined these roles and have looked at them and come up with this mission statement and these goals. So while I'm talking, go ahead and take a look at that. I just want to give a brief overview of what being a member of VAPA actually covers. So the membership in this association is really focused on three areas, three pillars that we've identified. The first one's advocacy. So one of VAPA's most important priorities is advocacy. We regularly attend meetings at the Board of Medicine and the PA Advisory Board, and we have a daily presence at the Virginia General Assembly when that is in session. We have two pending regulatory actions that will have a very positive impact on the PA practice in Virginia. And we're working on some important legislation for the 2025 legislative session, which Bobby will get into when he talks about government affairs. The next pillar is actually continuing education, which Jenna just kind of mentioned. We hold a week-long continuing education conference every July in Virginia Beach. This year, we revamped the format. We built in more breaks. We ended earlier in the day. We took a lot of feedback from past attendees and incorporated it into this year's conference. We also added a specialized leadership track, both of which were really well received, as Jenna mentioned. We are going to go off of that momentum into next year and really continue to take everybody's feedback and just make it a great conference for everybody attending. There's multiple workshops, there's special events, there's networking opportunities. We had a trivia night this year, which was really a lot of fun. And it's just a great opportunity to earn a large amount of CME while being at the beach. So I highly recommend if you're a VAPA member, you join us. If you're not a VAPA member, you do get a discount when you become a VAPA member. It is a big savings. So keep that in mind with your registration. And the last pillar is networking opportunities and promotion of the profession. So our membership is actually divided into 8 regions across the state, and each region has a coordinator that's assigned to it. And those coordinators work as a point of contact for the membership in their area. And many of them host events throughout the year. I know Richmond has an event going on right now. They're viewing this at a brewery. So that's just a great example of one of our areas that has very, very good leadership with the regional coordinators. They're very involved. And it just gives you a chance when you're a part of this organization, you have this region that you can belong to, you can network with other PAs, you have sponsored dinners, you have happy hours. It just gives you a chance to meet other people in your area. We have a free members only job board on our website. On that site, you can view job postings that are throughout the state. You can even post a job opportunity. It's all free for members. VAPA sponsors other educational conferences, and we advertise in numerous professional society publications. So we have our name out there in many different ways. And we have a very active communications committee, and they work really hard to promote PAs and their accomplishments on all of our social media channels. And this week, we're actually holding the annual social media challenge for PA schools, which is where the schools are competing for your likes on their themed posts. It's been really fun to watch. So if you haven't seen it, get on there and check it out. It's been really fun to see. And as Jenna mentioned, we also host the annual VAPA Awards. So that gives you a chance to nominate a PA that you think is outstanding and you want to recognize them for their accomplishments, whether it's a PA of the year, whether it's a humanitarian, there's partnership awards. It's just another way that we're highlighting the profession. And that's just a brief overview. If you ever have any questions, you could feel free to reach out to me directly. I will put my email in the chat. But with that, I will send it back to Blake.
Thank you so much, Devin. Outside of that, here are our goals. Devin touched on those loosely, but engagement, advocacy, and diversity, equity, and inclusion are something that we value as a core group of leaders within the organization. And as we make a segue, we'll turn to what we're doing from a legislative perspective within the state, including what we've accomplished in 2024, but also what we're looking towards in 2025 to help improve PA practice in Virginia. And for that, we'll turn it over to VAPA Vice President, Mr. Bobby Cochran.
Thank you, Blake, and welcome everybody tonight. I'm so happy to see so many people on this evening, and so please, I encourage you to please share the information that you're hearing tonight with all of your PA colleagues, and encourage them to be involved with VAPA and some of the stuff that we're presenting tonight as well. So I want to touch, as Blake said, on what we've accomplished in 2024. I also want to touch on some pending legislation that we have, or regulatory change that we have, and then also what we're pursuing for 2025 and beyond. So in 2024, if you were not able to join some of our earlier communications, what we were successful in our legislation last year, which was essentially to remove the need for a separate practice agreement. If a PA is practicing as part of a essentially a hospital system, federally qualified healthcare system, behavioral healthcare system, things like that. And you have a credentialing process that includes all of the elements that would be necessary in a practice agreement. It was a big step forward for us because previously we had a lot of barriers in trying to remove practice agreements, but we were able to get that done. And that is legislation that was passed and signed by the governor earlier this year. So we're very excited to have accomplished that. And two items that I want to mention tonight that are hugely impactful actually to PA practice here in Virginia are pending going through the Board of Medicine process for regulatory language change. And that is one, we're removing the language in Virginia code that says that a physician must see a patient if they present with the same illness twice and are not improving. And so that language will be changed to language that essentially says that you will be able to refer, it will be your judgment to refer the patient to a physician for follow-up if they're not improving. So it does give you more purview in your practice and removes that burden both on you and on the collaborating physician as well. So that's one thing. The second thing, and this one I hear a lot about for APP or for PAs across the state. And so I'm really excited for this to be changed because I think this is going to make a big difference for all of us. And that is that we're removing the language in Virginia code that is very antiquated, but says that a PA must have a physician name on the prescription for any controlled substances. And what I have heard from PAs across the state is that this continues to be a significant burden for many of you. I know personally with Nova Health System in Northern Virginia that we have a lot of PAs up here that get stung by this regulatory language, and it is causing delay of patient care. It's causing delay for the patients picking up their prescriptions. And what is perhaps most disturbing about it is that the individual pharmacies are interpreting it differently. And so they're applying a bunch of different rules that are actually not part of Virginia code. So that language is up for removal as well. And so where do we stand with that? That process that those items have to go through is through the Board of Medicine, and it's a very lengthy process. It really is about a 2-year, sometimes a little bit more process. And that has been in process for probably about 18 months now. And so I am hopeful. It's got a lot of support. It's got a lot of support from the Board of Medicine and others across the state. So I'm very hopeful that we will be able to get that finalized later this year. And so that's where we stand with those two things that are in process right now. So what are we doing for 2025? I'm very excited about where we are going with PA practice in Virginia. I think VAPA has made some pretty significant strides for PA practice in Virginia over the past few years, and we're continuing to really press forward with improving PA practice. one of the things that I hear very commonly across the state is that when PAs are trying to compete for jobs with nurse practitioners, et cetera, the often they're having a hard time competing with nurse practitioners because nurse practitioners can, quote, practice independently in the state. And even though they may work for a hospital system or an individual practice that doesn't want them to practice completely independently, the belief by collaborating physicians is that they have less responsibility for supervision with a nurse practitioner than with a physician assistant. So we are pressing forward with the intent to push independent practice or autonomous practice for PAs across the state. Now, this is going to be a multi-step process. And so as you all know, this legislation is going to be very involved and is going to require us to really get a lot of stakeholders to buy in to this legislation before we're going to be able to get it across the finish line. Jenna and I and others have been meeting with various leaders across the state, including our friends at the Medical Society of Virginia, who are going to be working with us on this as well. And this is part of building those partnerships so that we're able to move this legislation forward. And so there's more details to that. I don't want to take up a lot of time, but essentially what I want you all to know is that this is going to be a multi-step process. So this is going to be legislation that we're going to have to do in 25 and probably will go into 26 as well. But I'm very confident with what we have planned out and how we have it planned out and the support that we have been able to garner across the state that we will be able to accomplish this. Now, what do I need from you all? And I need all of you all to be involved in this. One is, as you all well know, your voice in the legislature is very important. And so you may have seen an email that came out by Devin a few weeks ago announcing lobby days that we will be having later this year. These are lobby days where we partner with the Medical Society of Virginia to help lobby for legislation that we feel is important, not necessarily just as PAs. This is legislation that's important for all of us, physicians, PAs, NPs, et cetera, that practice across the state. As we partner with Medical Society of Virginia, it improves our ability to have them support us in our legislation, the legislation specific PA legislation that we're going to put forward for independent practice as well. And so I strongly encourage you to please look at those dates for lobby days. And if at all possible, if there's any way possible that you can sign up and attend one of those, don't have to attend them all, but attend one of those. It is a very fun event. It is well organized by the Medical Society of Virginia. They have a breakfast in the morning. They set up all of the meetings with the legislators, and they have a lot of great information that we can share to explain what we want to accomplish with the legislation that we're pushing forward. The other thing that I want you to be aware of as well is that we do have a political action fund with VAPA. And so if you go to the website and you go to the page for the PAC, you can donate to the PAC. And that definitely helps us with our legislative efforts and our ability to get our legislation across the finish line. The last thing I want to bring up really quickly here too is one of the other things that is incredibly helpful is membership in VAPA. And so our efforts at building up our membership are going to continue to ramp up. We really want all of the PAs across the state to be heavily involved in this. And so if you can share this information, again, what's going on behind the scenes, the things that I've talked about tonight, and encourage your fellow PA colleagues to join VAPA and become involved, because this is how we get things done. This is how we're going to advance practice across the state. This is how we're going to be able to continue to compete for those positions with nurse practitioners, et cetera. So again, thank you. If you ever have any questions or anything, please feel free to reach out to me. Back to you, Blake.
Thank you, Bobby. We had a lot of questions submitted during this time, and it might be pertinent just to answer a few of them right now, so then that way we can address what you may have inspired people to ask about. First, I'll call out Miss Kathy Scarbalis, who is an excellent example of PA leadership and a champion for PAs in Virginia. And she said, great job for working on garnering the support for our legislative efforts now. And that the lobby days that we work with MSV for are phenomenal. And she encourages everyone else to join and consider supporting us as we go through and really work to advance the PA profession with what Bobby just referenced. An anonymous attendee asked if we have any joint bills with the Medical Society of Virginia or planning on that. And Bobby, you might just be able to clarify that for this attendee.
Yeah, and so there are bills that are joint bills, in that, and one of them that I can tell you offhand that's extremely important to PAs as well as physicians across the state is the potential removal of Medicare or medical malpractice cap. And so what the Medical Society of Virginia is doing, and us in partnership with them, helping lobby for that legislation, is that we want to make sure that if that cap is removed, that we have some reasonable level that they set the new cap at, because that can have a huge impact on malpractice costs. And also just practice in general, and whether people will be able to, afford other providers, whether they're physicians or PAs, because of that. So that's one example. There are other elements of legislation that we do partner with them, but that's an example of how we do partner with them, because most of the things that we partner with them, they're really for general practice. And are not PA or physician specific.
Thank you. Another attendee asked about posting the dates for lobby days. Right now, what I can tell you is that annually it's hard to know this far in advance, just because of the legislative cycle. And so typically the lobby days are in January and February, and they really have to depend on the legislature's schedule as well as when we're going to be able to bring those bills forward. So look out for times that we'll post it, likely in January, right after the new year, is about when we know what the actual dates are.
Yeah,
typically there's 2 or 3, maybe 4, depending on what we're bringing forward.
We have the dates now. Devin shared the email a couple of weeks ago with those dates, and we can certainly send that out to people again. The other thing that you can do is you can go to the Medical Society of Virginia website, so msv.org, and if you go to events, then you can click on when the legislative days are going to be, and actually that's where you're going to go to register as well. So you can actually see when the dates are now and register to attend one of those days.
Yep, and I'll put that information in the chat as well for everybody.
Thank you. Some of the questions we will come back to towards the end, but those were the ones that stood out to me just right away as I was screening them. And so up next, we will hear from Dr. Kimberly Supre, who represents and leads our House of Delegates, and just to hear about what our constituent group went to help advocate for Virginia PAs at the AAP House of Delegates.
All right, thank you, Blake. So as Blake said, I'm Kimberly Supre. I'm the chief delegate for VAPA. So just to kind of level set, Bobby talked a lot about legislative efforts within our state. The delegates, the Virginia delegates, what we do is we actually represent Virginia at the AAPA within what's called the House of Delegates. And the House of Delegates is the policy-making body of the AAPA. So our job when we go to the House of Delegates, which is always around the conference time, when we go to the House of Delegates, our job is to help represent the state. Before going, oftentimes we'll submit some type of resolution. We will discuss resolutions. We'll help to vote on resolutions. So we are your representatives there during that time. Right now, Virginia has a total of 7 delegates that go each year to represent the state, and that includes 6 of us plus our AAPA president as well. So this past year, we did have a resolution that had been submitted the year before that came back through the House of Delegates, which was related to the AAPA supporting the Doctor of Medical Science degree as the one post-professional degree for PAs. Unfortunately, this failed in the House of Delegates this past year. We feel very strongly that this is something that the AAPA should support because if you think about it, what we're trying to do is have one specific degree for all of us who have a PA-specific doctorate degree. Because if you think about where we are right now in our master's degrees, we all have all of these different types of master's degrees. And so we're trying to get to a point where we can have this one distinguishable doctorate, post-professional doctorate degree that can identify us as having a PA-specific doctorate, which can be very helpful for those in clinical medicine, especially. So we do plan to actually take this back to the House of Delegates next year. Our plan for next year, though, is to coordinate with a couple of other chapters so that we can try to get the votes to get this passed. So that is something that we are working on to take back next year. Also, 2 of our delegates are working on a resolution to submit related to palliative care and hospice. And so right now, you may be aware of this, but PAs practicing in palliative care and hospice, they're having issues with CMS reimbursement. So right now, PAs are unable to recertify patients, although nurse practitioners can. So that's a problem. This is one of those issues where, as many PAs know, where we have the skills to do the job, but it's the legislation often that's holding us back. So we plan to take a resolution to the AAPA so that they can put into their policy manual in writing that they support PAs being able to do this. And the hope is that having that in our policy manual will help them to push CMS to get away from these restrictive laws. So our hope is that we can get this passed. Seems like we do have support from the palliative and hospice care constituent organization. So we do plan to work with them to garner support even before we get to the House of Delegates. So hopefully we can get that passed. And like I said, the long-term lookout for this is to hopefully get things changed through CMS by having this policy on the books with AAPA. So once again, we are your representatives at the AAPA House of Delegates. So if you have any questions related to that, you can reach out to me. I will put a little tag on here that I am also one of the regional representatives for Northern Virginia. So we do have regular meetings, usually once a month. We have one coming up on October 9th. If you haven't received our email yet, Bart and I are both regional representatives for Northern Virginia. So reach out if you'd like to come to our dinner on October 9th. And that's all I have. Thanks, Blake.
Thanks, Kimberly. I appreciate that update. And while we're on the topic of AAPA and kind of broader policy, one of the things that I saw in the chat was a question about the PA Compact and how that might relate to telehealth. And that's still in a developing phase. And we're working through what the interstate compact really might mean in the realms of telehealth. But Bobby might be able to speak a little more directly to implications or where we're at right now with that development.
Yeah, so in general, there's not a lot more to say other than I did want to highlight that Virginia was the seventh state to pass the legislation for the PA compact. This actually we were the state that actually allowed the compact to be activated or to start the process of operationalizing the compact. And so the next step really is convening a committee, a compact committee that will work through all of the things that Blake is talking about, really how the compact will impact licensing, what needs to happen in order to participate in the compact, and really what that legislation will look like for us in practice in real time. So that process will take a little while. So we're still a little bit away from the compact actually getting fully operationalized. But for telehealth, that is something that I'm quite positive the compact is going to have a big impact on. And for those of you who practice at borders of states and perhaps may see patients in multiple states, it can be have a big impact, a positive impact on your practice as well. So stay tuned as we hear more about where we are in that process. And the AAPA and actually Kathy Scarbalis is involved in the committee, and so she's working very hard to make sure that that goes well for all of us as well. So.
Thank you, Bobby. And one of the we had some questions, Kimberly, regarding the DMSC. And one of the things that I think is important to note is right now of the doctorate programs that are available for PAs, or the program specifically, Virginia is unique in that we have 3 programs that are associated with a doctoral degree that is the Doctorate of Medical Science. And we as a state feel that that representation we're able to carry forward at AAPA and say, this is what we align behind and we would idealize to have as the title. There was a question about, what does that mean for master's PAs? And right now, the entry-level degree is a master's degree. And we're not at a point of being able to say that that is going to do anything other than say, if you want a profession-specific doctoral degree, we think that the title should be Doctorate of Medical Science. And absolutely what we see in the chat feature is that right now that doesn't change credentialing, that doesn't change privileging, but where that might impact a PA that has a doctorate degree is other avenues of professional development. And having that consistent language really, I think, strengthens the profession. And that's what we continue to hear from members like you, that, man, wouldn't it be nice to know that the Doctorate of Medical Science equates to being a PA? And
I just want to
go ahead, Kimberly.
Yeah, I just want to jump in real quick on the master's degree question, because I want to just make it really clear that we are not talking about our specific degree that we get to practice as a PA. That is going to remain the master's degree. The PAEA already had a meeting about that, and they have determined that the master's degree is the terminal degree for the PA profession. So specifically, our resolution is related to the post-professional doctorate degree. So these are people that choose to get a doctorate degree. This is not necessarily us saying all PAs need to go get a doctorate degree to practice as a PA. These are people that choose to get their doctorate degree post-professional. And usually it's for either teaching or leadership positions or something along those lines. So as Blake already said, it doesn't necessarily affect credentialing, but it can put you more so in the line to get these leadership positions or some teaching positions. So I just want to be really clear that we are not pushing to change our terminal degree, which will remain the master's degree. Thanks, Blake.
Thank you, Kimberly. And just to tie all that together, there was a question about how does the DMSC fit within ARC-PA? And Jenna might have a little more thought behind this, but I'm going to give you my answer. Is that right now ARC-PA doesn't have the capacity to provide that level of accreditation. But what I can tell you is that there is a working group right now that is looking at potential development of standards for potential doctoral degree programs. But that is in its infancy, and that is in an early phase of consideration. That's not saying that they are going to do it, but that is something that we know that is an ongoing discussion. And Jenna, I'm not sure if there's anything else you'd like to add to that.
I think you hit it pretty much on everything, all the points. Like, I was just going to also add that all the DMSC programs have a consortium now, because there's 31 programs and more coming. So we all have met, and we also have met with Sharon Luke and ARC-PA. So there's a lot of open dialogue going on behind it all. Lots of great collaboration. But again, we are not talking about anything ARC-PA.
Thank you. So up next, I'm just going to provide a brief membership update about where we stand, and Devin and Christy might be able to help fill in some specific numbers, but I just wanted to give a really big overview about where we're at right now in Virginia. And our current numbers look like we're just shy of 1,300 members within our state organization, and that represents PAs, retired PAs, as well as PA students. And we have really worked over the last 2 to 3 years to not only meaningfully connect with students, but make sure that there's a way that we can look at how does a PA student work to transition. And you'll hear from Alicia tonight, who's our new early career PA director, about some of the efforts and ways that we want to be able to connect with PAs that are brand new to practice. And that will be something that we work to focus on over the next year or so as Alicia takes the helm, and really helps us as an organization look at not only just PAs and PA students, but where PAs are at within their professional careers, because that segue and that transition is often very important. I just wanted to provide the membership list or the officer list for everyone. If you needed that directly, you can see the names and the emails of everyone that are here joining today. We're happy to connect as we represent you in the state of Virginia. Outside of that, what we will do is go through some of the committees, as well as the leaders of the region or the regional coordinators that we have, and just be able to hear from them if they want to provide you an update that's specific to the area that they're in. But I'll turn that over to Melissa Shaffron, who is our secretary. And so, Melissa, I'll pull open the list if you're available.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Blake. Good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to see such a big turnout this evening, and I'm really excited to be a continued part of VAPA. So first off, you can see here on the screen, we have a handful of committees, and each of these serves just a tremendous role to the board and then also to each of you. And so if you are not currently a member on any of these committees, please reach out, ask about what each does, what the involvement is, if you're worried about a time commitment, and get involved. I think this is a great opportunity and a great way to start to get involved within VAPA. That's how I got involved. I joined membership committee. That was the first one. And then came to my first summer conference and I was hooked. So this is me really just saying, if you have any interest in advocacy or membership or government affairs or DEI, please consider joining any of those committees. The first committee, if Shula is here, that I would love to hear an update from, would be the Advocacy and Outreach Committee. I thought I saw her on, but I'm not 100% sure.
I don't see her, but I will look to see if she's on.
Perfect.
And what I can say in the interim is that we just completed an advocacy and outreach survey. And within that survey, we're really always wanting to get feedback from the membership about the direction in which we're heading. Not shockingly, the majority of individuals that completed the survey are in alignment with where we are taking the Virginia Academy of PAs as well as the PA profession in Virginia. There were a lot of great suggestions that I think of areas of focus for us. But when we're looking at barriers to practice, oftentimes what I'm seeing from PAs in the state, what we're hearing and what we're doing as a board are all in alignment, which makes us as a board feel very good about where we are at, because your board is working for you, and we're hoping that those actions that you're requesting are being delivered, and that is always a goal within our organization.
Yes, most definitely. It's been very wonderful to see the results of the survey and to see really what you all are experiencing and what excites you. So next is the CME committee. And as we've mentioned previously, the summer conference, this year we had a leadership track and some breakout groups and rooms. And it was absolutely a wonderful experience. By far my favorite summer conference that I've been to, and I have been to my fair share since I've moved to Virginia. So I think that Angela Conrad, as well as the rest of the CME committee and the board, did just an excellent job. And so we definitely are looking forward to the feedback that we received from the summer conference attendees and from you on the advocacy and outreach survey and what we're going to plan for next year. So again, very excited. Our other committee, and I know for a fact she's here because she spoke a little bit earlier, is our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, and that is Kimberly Supray.
Hi, everyone. So the DEI committee, we help to add or ensure that we have one of our pillars as diversity, equity, and inclusion in our new vision and goals that we just wrote for the board. We also work to have a DEI representative just on our board to ensure that we always have someone there, thinking of things from a DEI/health equity lens. We also worked with the CME committee to ensure that we have at least a couple of presentations or workshops, whatever it may be, that could be related to health equity as well, because we want to be sure that we are providing that education during our largest conference of the year. And then also, hopefully, we'll be having some website updates with some resources that we'll be able to provide related to DEI. Thank you, Melissa.
Absolutely. We have heard also about our legislative updates and government affairs from Bobby Cockrum. If there's anything else, Bobby, please feel free to chime in.
No, nothing really from a legislative standpoint. I did want to say, I forgot to say this, and someone reminded me and that we're absolutely heartbroken for the people that have been affected by Helene. And I know many of you may have family and or relatives or colleagues that are living in areas affected by them. But I know that PAs do a lot of work to help out with recovery efforts, and some programs and stuff are helping out with recovery efforts. But I just wanted to make that one comment.
Thank you, Bobby. Blake, you are on two separate committees, membership as well as marketing and communications. Is there anything that you would want to add to those committee updates?
And Devin has already talked about our great efforts in regards to social media, and we are ever working through making sure that we're sharing pertinent and relevant content. And part of that is welcoming a director specifically focused in on that, and that will eventually transition that leadership role over to him. as well as anyone that is interested in joining social media. But what you can, or the marketing as well. And what you can see is that this week, our PA students are sharing some great content, and I have particularly loved what they're doing for preventative health. I think there's no better way to share the value of our profession with everyone else other than sharing ways that you can make sure that you're maintaining your health. And I think that's a great front facing for our organization. In regards to membership, the membership committee, right now that committee will hopefully start meeting more regularly as we start to move forward. And what we're looking at is really making sure that we're at the forefront of what we're able to do for our membership, and that the membership works for our state. And so what you'll see is that right now there's roughly 6,000 PAs in the state of Virginia. I saw that in the Q&A section. And being able to join ranks with our peers and be able to have one united voice is something that we need when we start making legislative efforts. It's nothing like saying you've got a board of 20 representing 6,000, right? That's a hard ask when you're sitting in front of your legislator. And in terms of value added, we are one of the cheapest constituent organizations in the United States in terms of membership. And that is pretty huge. What I can say in terms of relation of memberships to PAs and that are members as well as those that are active in the state, there's a huge discrepancy. And you see that state by state, and we're not the only state that sees that. If all 6,000 PAs were a member right now of our organization, we could do so much more and make such a bigger impact. But I think sometimes people aren't aware that we exist. People aren't aware of what we're doing. And it takes meetings like this, talking to your colleagues about the value that we add, and saying, yeah, it's great to use your professional or CME money and hopefully able to contribute that to your state organization. Simply without you as members, we can't do what we need to do. And it takes everyone united together to have that front face that says, we want X, Y, and Z. We hear you say that, but we need everyone to join the ranks and be able to say we are a united front. And so it's a huge thing that we continue to need to focus on.
And Blake, just to add on to that, the same thing goes for these committees that we're talking about. I know all of you have great feedback and great information that you want to share. And these committees are not a huge time commitment, and we could always use new members. So if there's anything that you see, if you have an opinion about something, if you don't like the way something is going, if you want to change the way that the conference is run, join a committee. We want to hear you. If you have friends, we want to hear what you're saying. So please, if you don't know what committee it would belong to, email me directly. I'm happy to point you in the right direction of which one it is, but we need you on committees too.
My update.
Thank you, Blake. All right, last is reimbursement. The chair, Sheila, is present on the call. And some of the big things with reimbursement is in September of this year, non-competes were going through the process of being kind of removed and disbanded. Another update that we talked about in our July board meeting was that there's a thing called the Chevron decision back in about 1984, and that has now kind of been overturned just based on the timing. And AAPA has really reached out to state organizations to say that you may notice some instability because now there's room for interpretation of some of the laws and regulations at the federal level. So that may not interrupt any of our day-to-day clinical practice unless you are practicing more at a federal level. AAPA is also discussing reimbursement for hospice PAs, and that's also a topic that we've heard about a little bit earlier that our HOD is going to be making a resolution for. So those are some reimbursement updates. And, reimbursement is something that is probably near and dear to a lot of our hearts, especially if we are in a situation that we are RVU based or any type of way like that. So if you have a passion for reimbursement, want to learn more, please join Sheila absolutely on her committee. That is one of the committees that I think probably needs a little bit more members than some others. So please consider joining and being an advocate for reimbursement. And I believe that is all of the committees, but Shola is now able to unmute. That was my fault. I apologize. So she can add a little bit of something from the advocacy and outreach.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to add that you can email us if you have any questions or any issues with PU practice as well at advocacy@vapa.org. We've also updated the advocacy website to include the updated legislature, as well as you can print out brochures for your employers to learn more about the PA profession. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. I believe that's everything, Blake. So I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Up next, as I've already discussed, we're going to hear from Alicia Rokicki, who is taking the helm to help make sure that we have a voice for early career PAs. Typically, that is defined somewhere in the range of just having graduated to about 5, maybe no more than 7 years, but we like to say about 5-year period. So, Alicia, I'll kind of turn it over to you as we really make sure that we have you to represent our new PAs.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Blake, for the introduction. Hi, everyone. My name's Alicia Rokicki. You might remember me. I was previously the marketing director for the Virginia Academy of PAs. And as time has gone on, VAPA has found a need for a bridge between early career PAs, so coming from the PAS, starting to practice as a PAC, and then growing into kind of the full capacity of your career and practicing at the top of your license. And so, as Blake had said, we're really focusing on the first 1 to 7 years of practice, but really more within the 1 to 5. And so I definitely fit that time frame as well, and trying to grow my career myself. Some of the areas that we've identified so far as resources for this time period would be creating a discussion series, so a whole bunch of topics relating to early career PAs, whether it's contract negotiation, kind of staying on top of the NCCPA and renewing your licenses, and kind of what should be entailed in your practice agreement and things like that. One of the other ways I hope to serve you is to establish contacts with other more senior PAs in more of a mentorship type role, and also have direct communication with advanced clinical programs like residencies and fellowships throughout Virginia, and kind of give you resources if you have any interest in pursuing one of those. And then lastly, I'm also on the board to advocate for you, to the board. So things that you have interest in, problems that you're encountering, and bringing them to the board's attention and hopefully finding some resolution for you there. Our first steps is really trying to hear out the new early career PAs in Virginia. So our first plan to get things going is to actually have a meeting. And so we'll send out a job blast to all of the newly licensed PAs in Virginia. If you are new to Virginia or also just have interest in attending this meeting, please feel free to either email myself or Devin, who can pass that email along to me. And we can, of course, include you. We don't quite have a date yet, but we're looking towards the end of October. So please be on the lookout from that email from the Virginia Academy of PAs. Thank you, Blake.
Thank you, Alicia. I appreciate that. And so now we'll turn it over to more of the Q&A session, and this is going to be broad, and we'll make sure that we've covered most everything. And so as we go through them, one of the questions that we had, how many programs have been involved in recovery efforts? And I'm guessing that's in relation to the hurricane. And Sarah is in the close to the general region, so she might have a better feel for what is going on at the program level. in terms of supporting recovery efforts. Melissa, you may be able to say as well.
We do have a few students whose families are affected by the tragic events that have happened in Southwest Virginia, North Carolina, and Tennessee. And I know that our students are working to provide donations and to encourage people to donate things like water and other supplies that are needed right now, and finding connections to get those supplies to the places that they're needed. That's what's going on at our student level, which, you know, if you've worked with students, once they're passionate about something, they get a lot of things done. And so I'm very encouraged by the work that's already starting. I think that the response to the area has been a little bit slow because people are trying to figure out how to get places and how to do things with the limited supplies that are currently available. But as much as possible, I've just in the last 2 days gotten information from Virginia Tech and Radford about different organizations that are gathering supplies and things. I'm happy to share any of that information with anybody who'd like to have it. And I can try to share that information through Devin if we can share it with the entire membership.
I think that would be very
Absolutely.
helpful.
Yeah.
All right. We had a question about the percentage of PAs working in rural areas, and noting that about 88% of Virginia is rural. And what I'm looking at is trying to get back to that original question, but I believe it's what are we working towards for rural PAs in terms of practice. And you know, broadly what I would say is I think while it might not seem specific, a lot of our focus is on policy that hopefully would impact rural PAs as much as they would impact a PA working in Northern Virginia, Richmond, Charlottesville. But Bobby, yeah, I'm not sure if you're able to connect anything specific beyond just generally saying that I feel like our work is working and impacting rural PAs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would tell you that in, our legislative efforts around even independent practice probably are hugely impactful in rural areas because, with many rural areas having limited providers and limited ability for physicians to supervise, et cetera, this could be a huge impact for our patients in rural areas and practice in rural areas. These other things that we mentioned earlier around whether it's the regulatory language that we're changing, those kind of things would make a huge impact as well. But yeah, I think we're absolutely aware that we have a huge portion of Virginia that's rural, and we definitely want to make sure that we're making the changes that are going to impact those rural areas as well.
What I can appreciate, and I've worked for 6 years in South Boston, Virginia, and that's a town, but I served a rural population of about 50,000 that didn't have regular access to standards of what most people would consider really care. And every time that I went to a meeting or sat down to work at legislation, people would be shocked at just the levels of examples that I could draw upon to say why we need these legislative efforts that we're working on right now and how much they impact. What I can tell you is outside of maybe one thing, which is ratios in the state of Virginia, which is a hard ask right now, just simply the alignment behind MSV and our partnerships to eliminate collaborating physicians per PA just isn't there. It might be something in the future, but from a true technical perspective in rural Virginia, I didn't have that as a rate limiting step to me being able to provide care. Just simply, we needed more people. And really just being able to enhance that practice through what we're already doing. We're always happy to hear those extra examples of opportunities to make things better. So please know that we're open ears. And I do see that someone said a rural care fellowship, and I know specifically at Carillion, there is a fellowship option for PAs to fill in the rural care area. And Sarah, you might be able to just touch on that briefly. I know you're not representing Carillion, but it's right there.
Well, I work there too, so yes, Carillion has an urgent care and rural health ACP fellowship that accepts PAs and NPs. And so if that is something that you're interested in or want to know more about, I can definitely connect you to the director of that fellowship. If you're interested in teaching others to be providers in that setting, or if you know someone who's interested in working in that setting and would be interested in the fellowship.
And one additional thing that I will share with you is the state of Virginia is currently, and has at least for the last 6 years, provided tuition remission or forgiveness to PAs working in rural underserved areas in Virginia. I, in fact, was a recipient of that fund. And so it is a program available if you're working for a nonprofit that is in a historic disadvantaged area of Virginia. It's similar to the national scholarship, but Virginia has a fund of money specifically for providers going into rural areas. If you're not promoting those to students, you really should be. So it's called the State Loan Repayment Program, and it is an excellent resource for PAs to be able to go and fill needs in rural areas, but also to have some of their tuition, their loans forgiven. It was a huge impact for me, and it really brought me from Harrisonburg down to South Boston, Virginia. So I just want to put that as a great example that we can also help ourselves, and that knowing what resources are available in the state of Virginia are already there and already great. And we should be encouraging the future generations to look at those as well. But with that in mind, we'll have some general closing remarks. I just want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. I hope you learned a little bit about what we're doing currently in Virginia, but where we're also going. And I appreciate that you all joined. I hope you're already members. If you're not already a member, you will be receiving a discount code for a free membership. If you have been a member, you'll get a discount code when you renew your membership for this upcoming year. And outside of that, Kathy did remind me that we do have a scholarship through MSV now, the Medical Society of Virginia Foundation. It's an endowed PA student scholarship that it rotates through the PA programs. But that fund is always open for donations. If you would like to contribute, we can connect you with Kathy to make sure that your contributions can help further students' education through that fund. It's tax deductible, Kathy says. So, thank you, and you'll get an email from us soon.
Thank you all.